Oh, he's mad. Vice President Kamala Harris came to the city of Atlanta, biggest crowd of her presidential campaign yet. And she said, how about you say it to my face? Here it is.
Well, Donald, I do hope you'll reconsider to meet me on the debate stage. Because as the saying goes, if you've got something to say,
with millions watching and many people benefiting from this program called Indisputable, we just need 1% of the viewers to become a paid member so we can continue to bring this content to you. Now back to the show. Producers, I'm going to ask you to play that for me one more time. Speechwriter, big ups to you for providing the right context for that moment. I would have said something like, say it with your chest, little man. But same thing. Once again, here it is.
Well, Donald, I do hope you'll reconsider to meet me on the debate stage. Because as the saying goes, if you've got something to say,
let's put up the picture full mass. I would like to provide some context and background and also a little bit of nuance here. Donald Trump has decided to not debate in September. And one of the reasons the campaign gave was that she was not the Democratic nominee. However, the debate was scheduled for September. The Democratic National Committee is in August. The convention is in August. So that excuse makes no sense. Trump was not the Republican nominee officially when he was allowed to debate Biden. What excuse is there for Trump to pull out of the debate this early, this quickly, and, well, let's just say this cowardly? Vice President Kamala Harris has obliterated former President Trump in a 7-point lead. She now has a 7-point lead. Excuse me, 7 key battleground states in the days since becoming the presumptive Democratic presidential nominee. That's according to a new poll. The Bloomberg News Morning Consult survey published Tuesday shows 48% of likely voters backing Harris as compared to Trump's 47%. That is a statistical tie. That's according to Bloomberg. The poll, in which 4,873 registered voters were posed a question last week, shows Harris opening up an 11-point lead over her rival in Michigan, with further 2-point leads in Nevada, Arizona, and Wisconsin. In Pennsylvania, Trump leads Harris by 4 points, and he still edges her out by 2 points in North Carolina. Both of those polls are within the margin of error. The pair were tied in Georgia. They're tied in Georgia. Did you hear what I just said? They're tied in Georgia. All right. Both polling at 47%. He made all this fuss about Georgia. A similar poll conducted by Bloomberg Morning Consult at the start of the month, when President Joe Biden was still his party's presumptive nominee. So this was a dire poll for Democrats. It showed Trump running rings around Biden, outstripping him overall by 2 percentage points. So he was winning based on the calculation, popular vote and electoral college. Unheard of. But there's more. So Kamala Harris' presidential campaign hit back on Donald Trump Tuesday night after he told a radio host the vice president, quote, doesn't like Jewish people, end quote, even though the vice president is married to a Jewish man. He also seemingly agreed when the host called Harris's husband, Doug Emhoff, quote, a crappy Jew, end quote. Early on Tuesday, Trump appeared on Sid and Friends, a New York-based radio talk program where he condemned Jews who vote for Democratic candidates as, quote, absolute fools. Number one, she doesn't like Israel, Trump said. Number two, she doesn't like Jewish people. You know it, I know it, and everybody knows it, and nobody wants to say it, and I'm going home. I added that last part, but that's basically what was in his head. The show's host, Sid Rosenberg, took the sentiment one step further. Quote, Doug Emhoff, Mr. President, is Jewish, Rosenberg said. He's Jewish like Bernie Sanders is Jewish. Are you kidding me? He's a crappy Jew. He's a horrible Jew. On the audio, Trump says, yes, twice during Rosenberg's rant about Emhoff. In a statement released on Tuesday, the Harris campaign called Trump hateful and despicable, and the comment disgusting and below the dignity of anyone. Donald Trump thinks he can score points with Jewish voters by denigrating them. He is wrong, the campaign wrote. So Trump has used this line to attack, line of attack against Jews or Jewish Democrats in the past, and has recently begun targeting the vice president with similar rhetoric. At a rally on July 24th in Charlotte, North Carolina, Trump claimed Harris was, quote, totally against the Jewish people. Jewish voters have historically voted for Democrats in the past elections. A Pew Center study published after the 2020 presidential election found that 71% of Jewish voters still identified with the Democratic Party. Roughly 50% of Jews identified as liberal, compared to 32% who identified as moderate. Only 16% identified as conservative. About 73% of those voters disapproved of Trump's job performance after his first term as president. Support for both the Republican Party and former President Trump did rise sharply among Orthodox Jews surveyed, the research found, who made up about 1 in 10 Jewish voters in the United States. Donald Trump is speaking against the vast majority of Jews. Can we be clear about that? He's calling the vast majority of Jews fools. He's calling the vast majority of Jews crappy Jews. Why? The vast majority of Jewish voters actually vote for the left-leaning ticket, actually identify based on progressive politics. Variation exists, obviously, but the facts are the facts. Is there a reason why Donald Trump has not been called anti-Semitic? Let me put it this way. What if Kanye West said, if you vote for Kamala Harris, you're a crappy Jew? What if Bill O'Reilly would have said something like that in his heyday, that you are a fool if you're Jewish and voting for Kamala Harris? They would be called anti-Semitic. So why is it that Donald Trump gets to avoid the brand matrix that would have been applied to anyone else? All right, just a question. They have nothing once again, and it is beginning to become a comedy routine, more so than a political campaign from the Trump camp. What say you?
Yeah, it's really interesting what's happening right now within the Democratic Party, not just with Harris, but with the Democrats themselves, the voting Democrats, I mean. For one, I really like this approach that Kamala Harris and her campaign are taking. They're taking a much more proactive approach to politics. They're less reactionary. They're on the offense, and it's refreshing to see. And honestly, it's long, long overdue. And second, I'm impressed at how well Harris's campaign is being run so far. She's courting grassroots support from various different groups. She's recognizing that people are desperate for a leader who is neither Trump nor Biden. So she's talking directly to the people. And her messaging, for the most part, is aggressive and it's fearless and it's clear. And I want to say that up until she became the presumptive nominee, not a lot of people, including myself, were that fired up about Kamala Harris. And that's something that the Republicans have actually picked up on. I think they're trying to convince themselves that there isn't much enthusiasm around Kamala Harris, despite what the rally attendance shows, and despite what the polls are showing, and despite what the fundraising dollars are showing. But speaking frankly for myself, at least, I didn't know what she was up to for the last 4 years. Even for a vice president, we saw her very, very little. And I know we didn't actually see a whole lot of Mike Pence either. But for Kamala Harris, she was such a historic VP that so many of us would have loved to see her take a more active role there and really make the most of it, be visible in that role as the first brown, Black woman in that role. And she's not the perfect presidential candidate. She's got a lot of baggage. She has a past, and she will need to address all of that to her critics in the months to come. She has had failed initiatives, right? Things that didn't go the way she wanted them to. But if you failed at something, it means that you at least tried something. And as Gretchen Whitmer recently pointed out at a rally, Harris has more experience in government and public service than both Trump and J.D. Vance combined. And just a reminder, just because a presidential candidate or even a president is not perfect, it doesn't mean that we can't and that we shouldn't criticize them and hold them accountable.
That's right.
Both before they're voted in and after they're in office. So if you're trying to hold your president accountable, do you think you're going to get further with Trump or Kamala Harris? I think we have a much better shot with Kamala Harris.
There you go. And you highlight the reality of American politics. We do not select our president. We elect our president based on the corporate system called the two-party system approach. All right, hell of a thing.